All right, strap in, everyone. Are we going deep on intuitive machines today? You sent over their latest press release and SEC filing. And, well, let me tell you, things are getting pretty interesting out there. On the final frontier, we're talking about moon landings, a potential space data network, and a whole lot of green, the financial kind, of course.
What's really fascinating is how Intuitive Machines is tackling this whole lunar thing. They're not just focused on getting there, they're actually building out the whole infrastructure for like a
Ah,
whole lunar economy. Like, think about it, delivery services, communication networks, even like groundwork for future lunar bases and outposts.
wow. So they're kind of like the space age version of building roads and power lines, but,
Yeah.
on the moon. And it looks like that strategy is attracting some serious attention. They just snagged a $116.9 million contract from NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services Initiative. That's actually their fourth award through this program,
Yeah.
more than any other company.
Hmm. That's really telling. I mean, first of all, NASA clearly sees Intuitive Machines as a reliable partner.
Mm.
And second, this initiative isn't just about like one-off missions, This is part of a larger plan to foster a whole commercial ecosystem on the moon.
And it's not just about physical deliveries either. They also snagged a contract for data services from NASA's Near Space Network. You know that system of satellites and ground stations NASA uses to track and talk to spacecraft? This one's potentially worth a mind-blowing $4.82 billion.
Wow, that's massive. That's a real game changer. This points to a major shift towards a much more robust and reliable space communication system. I mean, just
It's like they're laying down the internet cables for the moon. It's incredible when you think about it.
yeah.
And speaking of pushing boundaries, they recently completed a hot fire test of the propulsion system for their second lunar mission, which is set to launch from Kennedy Space Center in early 2025.
Yeah, this hot fire test wasn't just, lighting a match. It was really a crucial step in validating the integrated performance of that Nova-C lunar lander's propulsion system. Basically, it ensures that the lander can withstand the extreme temperatures and pressures of a lunar descent and landing.
So they're not just winning these big contracts, they're also hitting those critical technical milestones. But let's shift gears for a sec and talk about the financials, because their numbers are looking really, really good. Their revenue for Q3 shot up by 359% compared to last year, reaching $58.5 million.
Wow. Yeah, that brings their year-to-date revenue to a whopping $173.3 million, which is more than double their total revenue for all of 2023. And this isn't just about launching rockets, It shows that they're successfully positioning themselves as that go-to provider for lunar infrastructure. They're attracting both government and commercial clients.
That's remarkable growth.
Yeah.
And they're not just raking in the cash, they're actually turning a profit. They reported a positive gross margin of $4.1 million in Q3. Now, for those of us who aren't exactly financial wizards, what exactly does that mean?
So, gross margin. It's a key indicator of a company's financial health, really. It tells us how much money they're making on each dollar of revenue after you subtract the direct costs of providing their services. A positive gross margin means that they're operating efficiently and generating profit, which is crucial for long-term sustainability.
It's like they figured out how to make money in space, which is not an easy feat. And on top of that,
Yeah.
they're sitting on a nice pile of cash. $89.6 million at the end of Q3, the highest it's ever been. What's the significance of that?
Well, that cash stockpile gives them a lot of flexibility to invest in research and development, expand their operations, maybe even acquire other companies to really solidify their position. And it also helps them weather any unexpected storms. This industry can be inherently risky.
So they're not just surviving, they're thriving. And their record backlog of $316.2 million, their highest ever, underscores the strong demand for their services. And remember, this doesn't even include the full potential of that massive Near Space Network contract, so there's even more room for growth on the horizon.
Absolutely. That backlog represents future revenue. From contracts they've already secured, it basically gives them a really clear picture of their revenue for the coming quarters. And it shows that their customers are confident in their ability to deliver.
It seems like they're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
But hold on a second. This all sounds incredibly positive. Are there any, potential challenges or hurdles they might face as they continue to grow? It can't all be smooth sailing in the space industry, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. Space exploration, it's inherently risky, and the commercial space industry is no exception. So while Intuitive Machines seems to be in a really strong position, there are definitely potential challenges that they'll need to navigate.
Okay, so let's dive into those potential hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm sure our listeners want to know what could potentially, rock their rocket, so to speak.
I think one of the biggest challenges for any company in this industry is competition. As the space economy heats up, you're going to see more and more players entering the game, all vying for a slice of that lunar pie.
So it's not just about beating the Russians to the moon anymore. It's about outsmarting and outmaneuvering a whole bunch of new space startups and these big established aerospace giants.
Exactly. And as access to space becomes more affordable, the barriers to entry, they're getting lower. You're going to see more competitors coming in, each with their own strengths and their own strategies. Intuitive Machines is going to have to stay agile
Yeah.
and continue to set themselves apart to maintain that leading position.
It's like a cosmic game of chess out there, and they need to think a few steps ahead. So competition is a big one. What else could throw them off course?
Well, the regulatory landscape is another big one. Space law, it's still evolving. And the lack of clear international regulations for things like resource extraction or building habitats on the moon, that could create a lot of uncertainty and maybe even some conflicts down the line.
Sounds like the Wild West out there in space. Everyone's making up the rules as they go.
Yeah, pretty much. And until there's a more robust and internationally recognized framework for governing space activities, companies like Intuitive Machines are going to have to navigate some pretty murky legal waters, which can be risky, to say the least.
Okay, so we've got competition, and we've got regulations. What other potential roadblocks are out there?
Well, technological advancements are a double-edged sword. On one hand, they're driving the growth of the space industry. But on the other hand, companies need to constantly innovate and adapt just to keep up. If Intuitive Machines falls behind in the tech race, they could quickly lose their competitive edge.
It's like they have to run just to stay in the same place.
Exactly.
And let's not forget about the inherent risks of space travel itself. Launches can fail, equipment can malfunction, and you never know what challenges might pop up once you're actually out there on the lunar surface.
You're absolutely right. Space is a harsh and unforgiving environment, even the most meticulous planning. Can't eliminate all risks. Intuitive Machines is going to have to manage those risks really carefully and make sure that their missions are as safe and reliable as possible.
So they need to be bold, but they also need to be cautious. It's a tough balancing act. But let's shift gears for a minute and talk about the potential rewards, because even with all those challenges, the opportunities in the space economy are huge.
Absolutely. We're really on the cusp of a whole new era of space exploration and commercialization. The possibilities are mind-boggling. Mining resources on asteroids, building habitats on Mars, pushing the boundaries of scientific discovery.
It's like a new gold rush. But this time, the gold is scattered across the solar system. And Intuitive Machines, with their focus on building that lunar infrastructure, they seem perfectly positioned to capitalize on this new frontier.
Exactly. Their goal is to enable a sustainable human presence on the moon. And that vision is attracting attention from everyone. Governments, investors, entrepreneurs, they're not just building rockets, they're building a future.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, we've talked about the opportunities. Now let's get back to those impressive financial numbers. As much as we all love the idea of space exploration, at the end of the day, it's a business.
It is. And to really understand Intuitive Machines' potential, we need to dig into their financials. They provided a really detailed breakdown in their SEC filing. It's packed with insights.
All right, so let's roll up our sleeves and dig into those numbers. Where do we even begin with a document like this? It can be a bit intimidating for someone who's more comfortable with spaceships than spreadsheets.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'll guide you through it. Let's start with their balance sheet. It's basically a snapshot of their financial health at a specific point in time. It shows what they own, their assets, what they owe, their liabilities, and what's left over for the owners, their equity. It's like looking under the hood of their financial engine.
Okay, I'm game. What jumps out at you when you look at their balance sheet?
Well, the first thing I notice is their cash position. Remember that $89.6 million at the end of Q3? Their highest ever. That's a crucial indicator of their financial strength.
So it's like having a healthy savings account. It provides a cushion for any unexpected expenses, and it allows them to jump on opportunities as they arise.
Exactly. It gives them the flexibility to invest in new technologies, expand their operations, and even weather potential downturns in the market. It's a sign of financial stability and a solid foundation for future growth.
That's reassuring to hear. What else stands out to you?
Well, take a look at their assets. Besides that impressive cash pile, they have property and equipment worth over $17 million. This includes things like their manufacturing facilities, their testing equipment, and other physical assets they own. And then there are operating lease right-of-use assets, worth almost $39 million.
Okay, those are some big numbers. Break it down for me. What exactly are operating lease right-of-use assets?
Think of it this way. Intuitive Machines leases certain equipment and facilities for their operations, and these leases give them the right to use those assets for a specific period of time. Operating lease right-of-use assets represent the value of those rights on their balance sheet.
So it's kind of like renting a car. You don't own the car,
Oh,
but you have the right to use it for a certain amount of time.
exactly. And combined with their property and equipment, these assets show that Intuitive Machines is investing heavily in building up their infrastructure and capabilities, which is essential for supporting their ambitious growth plans.
It's like they're building a solid foundation for their lunar empire. But wait a minute, there's also this section on liabilities, things they owe to others. Should we be concerned about that?
Liabilities are a normal part of any business. It includes things like accounts payable, money they owe to suppliers, debt, and other obligations. It's important to analyze those liabilities in relation to their assets and revenue to get a complete picture of their financial health.
All right, so let's put on our financial detective hats and see what we can uncover. What do their liabilities tell us?
One thing that jumps out at me is their contract liabilities, which is actually a good sign. These represent work they've already been paid for, but haven't completed yet. It's basically a prepayment for future services. It shows their customers have confidence in their ability to deliver.
So it's like getting paid in advance, which is a pretty sweet deal. What about their debt levels? Are those manageable?
Yeah, their debt seems very manageable, especially considering their strong cash position and revenue growth. Remember, debt can be a useful tool for companies to finance growth and expansion, as long as it's managed responsibly.
Okay, so they've got a healthy cash balance. They're investing in their infrastructure, and their debt levels seem reasonable. All signs point to a financially sound company. But how does all of this translate into their overall financial performance and their potential for future growth?
That's where we need to look at their income statement. It gives us a detailed breakdown of the revenues and expenses over a specific period. It tells the story of how they're making money and where that money is going.
All right, let's flip the page to the income statement and see what financial tales it has to tell. This is where things get really interesting.
All right, let's crack open this income statement and see what kind of story it tells us about Intuitive Machines' financial performance.
Let's do it. Where do we start?
Well, the top line. It shows their total revenue. That's the money they're bringing in from providing their services. And like we talked about earlier, their revenue's been skyrocketing.
Yeah, that 359% year-over-year increase in Q3 is hard to miss. It's a pretty clear sign their business is booming.
Exactly. It's not just a one-off thing either. Their year-to-date revenue's already more than their total revenue for 2023. This kind of sustained growth, it's a strong indicator of a healthy and expanding business.
So they're definitely doing something, right? Yeah. But revenue alone doesn't tell the whole story, right? We also need to look at their expenses, to get a sense of how efficiently they're operating.
Absolutely. The income statement breaks down those expenses into different categories, like cost of revenue, research and development, and general and administrative expenses.
Okay, let's zoom in on those categories for a sec.
Yeah.
What can we learn from their expenses?
Well, their cost of revenue. That represents the direct costs associated with providing their services. Things like materials, labor, and launch expenses. What's encouraging is that their cost of revenue is increasing at a slower rate than their revenue, which suggests they're getting more efficient.
So they're getting better at managing their costs as they scale up, which is a good sign for their long-term profitability.
Right. Now, another important category is research and development. Intuitive Machines is investing a lot in developing new technologies and capabilities, which is essential for staying ahead of the curve in this industry.
Makes sense. It's like they're always trying to push the boundaries of what's possible in space, which takes serious investment. But those investments could really pay off big time if they lead to those breakthroughs that give them a competitive advantage.
Exactly. And then there are the general and administrative expenses, things like salaries, rent, and other overhead costs. It's always good to keep an eye on these to make sure they're not getting out of control.
So it's about finding that balance, investing enough to fuel growth and innovation, but also keeping those overhead costs under control. It's a delicate balance.
Absolutely. Now, once we subtract all those expenses from their revenue, we get their net income. That's their bottom line profit.
And we talked earlier about how they had a positive gross margin in Q3, which means they're operating profitably, but are they actually net profitable yet?
Not yet. Their gross profit's positive, but their net income is still negative. because of those investments in R&D and other growth initiatives.
So they're not quite in black yet, but they're heading in the right direction. And with their strong revenue growth and positive gross margin, it seems like profitability is within reach.
I agree. Their financials really paint a picture of a company that's growing rapidly, investing strategically,
Right.
and moving towards sustainable profitability.
Okay, so their financials look really good. But how does Intuitive Machines' success story fit into the bigger picture of the space industry? How do they stack up against other players in this exciting new field?
Well, Intuitive Machines is part of a new wave of private companies that are really driving innovation and commercialization in space. They're challenging the traditional dominance of government agencies, bringing that entrepreneurial spirit and a market-driven approach to space exploration.
It's like the space race has gone private, with these
Mhm.
companies competing to build the future of space travel and commerce.
Yeah, exactly. And while there are a lot of companies vying for a piece of that pie, Intuitive Machines stands out because they're focused on building the infrastructure for a sustainable lunar economy. They're not just launching rockets, they're creating a foundation for a long-term human presence on the moon.
They're like the pioneers of the space frontier, paving the way for future generations to live and work and explore beyond Earth.
I like that analogy. And their success so far shows that this vision is resonating with investors and customers. They're attracting top talent, securing funding, and winning those crucial contracts.
It's an exciting time to witness this new era of space exploration unfolding. But are there any broader trends or forces shaping this new space economy that our listeners should be aware of?
Definitely. One major factor is the decreasing cost of access to space thanks to things like reusable rockets and advancements in launch technology.
So it's becoming more affordable to reach for the stars,
Yeah.
which opens up possibilities for more players to enter the game.
Exactly. Another key driver is the growing awareness of the vast resources available in space. The moon, asteroids, even Mars, they all hold valuable minerals, water ice, and other resources that could be crucial for future industries.
Like a cosmic treasure hunt with the potential to unlock unimaginable wealth and resources.
Exactly. And lastly, there's a growing demand for space-based services like satellite communications, Earth observation, even space tourism. This demand's fueling the growth of companies like Intuitive Machines that are building the infrastructure to support these activities. Oh.
So it's like this perfect storm of technological advancements, resource availability, and market demand, all coming together to create this brand new space economy. And Intuitive Machines seems to be riding that wave with incredible success.
They are. They're in the right place at the right time, with the right vision and the skills to capitalize on this moment in history.
So what does all this mean for you, our listener? Why should you care about Intuitive Machines and this whole space economy thing?
Well, here's the thing. Space is no longer just science fiction or government-funded exploration. It's becoming a real part of our economy, our technology, and our future. The innovations happening in this field are going to have a huge impact on all of us, from the products we use, to the jobs we have, to the way we see our place in the universe.
It's like a new frontier opening up, full of possibilities and potential. And Intuitive Machines is one of the companies leading the charge, helping to shape this exciting future.
Exactly. They're a great example of human ingenuity and ambition, and that relentless pursuit of pushing our limits. And as they venture further into space, they're paving the way for a future that's full of possibilities that we can only imagine right now.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive. We explored Intuitive Machines' financial success, their strategic position in this growing space economy, and even the challenges and opportunities that are shaping this new frontier. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And it leaves us with one final thought to ponder. As we venture further into space, we're going to need new ways of thinking, new systems of governance, even new ethical frameworks to guide our actions out there.
It's a challenge that's going to require collaboration, innovation, and a deep understanding that we're all connected. And it presents us with an incredible opportunity to rethink our relationship with our planet, with each other, and with the vast universe around us.
It's a journey worth taking, and Intuitive Machines is definitely a company to keep your eye on as we navigate this uncharted territory.
So keep exploring the possibilities of space. The future is out there, waiting to be discovered.